In this video, I will be talking about the Three Kingdoms period of China, focusing on the many talented heroes of that time. Gan Ning. An early career in piracy shaped his lifestyle as he became known for his disregard of authority. This trait was outweighed by his undying loyalty and ferocity on the battlefield, which led to a very successful career for him serving under Sun Quan's Kingdom of Wu. Born in the Ba Commandery in the year 180, Gan Ning, like many of the time, suffered a harsh upbringing. He accepted an invitation to work in the local offices, but quit almost as soon as he started. His inability to pay attention and youthful energy drew him towards other like-minded individuals, who then banded together under him, where they honed their skills together using bows and crossbows. Gan Ning's misfits rose to infamy, travelling the area, robbing and murdering as they deemed necessary. They favoured bright, elaborate clothing, paired with feathered hats and bells tied onto their armour. On land, they rode in a unique formation, whilst on water they would tie their boats together as one. When they docked into cities and towns, they used silk to tie their boats together, and then left it behind when they departed, showing off their wealth. Gan Ning gained a reputation for his sincere treatment of government officials who would cooperate with his deeds. Those that did not often found themselves targeted by the group. He would live this life of crime until his early 20s, where he set his sights on something larger. In the year 194, the governor of Yi province, Liu Yan, passed away. Gan Ning sought the opportunity to take up arms against his son, Liu Zhang. He gained support for his cause from government officials in Jing, and even some of Liu Zhang's subordinates, but he was inevitably unsuccessful. Learning from his defeat, he decided to dedicate some years to studying military texts. He took heed from what is known as the 100 Schools of Thought, which was an educational movement of the time. The chaotic lawlessness enabled many cultural teachings and ideas to be discussed freely in various schools throughout the realm. This enabled the brightest minds of the time to truly flourish. He took his 800 men and joined Liu Biao in Jing, where he quickly realized the incompetence of his new master. He sought to join the little conqueror Songzhi to the east, but was prevented from crossing the river as Liu Biao was currently at war with him. Stuck, he decided to join up with the local warlord Huang Zu, who had been given command of a separate force on autonomy by Liu Biao. Gan Ning went unnoticed in this faction until the year 203, when the new leader of Wu, Sun Quan, invaded Huang Zu at Xiaku. The battle was lost, and even though Gan Ning was able to save Huang Zu's life by killing the Wu general Ling Tong with an arrow, he still received ill treatment, as his brothers-in-arms were slowly being convinced by Huang Zu to leave his side. Su Fei, who recognized Gan Ning's talents, urged him to seek out a new master, to which Gan Ning expressed his fears and frustrations in asking for relocation. Su Fei managed to convince Huang Zu in assigning Gan Ning to the east, where he didn't hesitate to leave immediately for the Wu kingdom. He arrived in Jiankang in the year 208, where he found an audience with Lu Meng and Zhou Yu, who recommended him to Sun Quan. They made their way over to the court, where Gan Ning proposed a 4-part strategy where he exposed Huang Zu, who had broken boats, low morale, lacking funds, and neglected his agriculture. After this, he recommended that Sun Quan seizes Jing from the weak Liu Biao before Cao Cao to the north does the same. One of the two well-respected Zhaos from Wu, Zhang Zhao, argued that the southeastern territories have not been pacified yet, and that engaging in battle so soon would lead to chaos. Gan Ning criticized his inability to recognize how much chaos the realm is already in, and how it will continue to be so until it is united once again. Intrigued by Gan Ning's bluntness, Sun Quan put him in charge of mapping out plans to defeat Huang Zu, which were successfully executed, much like how Huang Zu and Su Fei were soon to be too. Su Fei reached out to Gan Ning, who had admittedly completely forgotten about him. He rushed to Sun Quan's quarters, where he dropped to his knees begging for Su Fei's life, for so long that his head started to bleed. It was only when Gan Ning offered his own head in replacement of Su Fei's that Sun Quan eventually pardoned him. By the end of the same year, Cao Cao marched south and was met by the combined forces of Liu Bei and Sun Quan in what has been called the largest naval battle in history, the Battle of Qi. Throughout the months, Gan Ning contributed towards 2 victories within the Qi campaign. The first was the initial major engagement at Wu Lin. Next was a conflict at Yiling, where Gan Ning arrived with 700 exhausted men. The commander of the city was an old officer of Liu Zhang's who greatly despised Cao Cao, so took the opportunity with his 300 men and immediately surrendered to Gan Ning. Luckily, Lu Meng refused Sun Quan's suggestion of reforming the armies, which granted Gan Ning the extra 300 soldiers to bolster his unit. He was fortunate because upon hearing Yiling had fallen, Tao Ren sent 6,000 cavalry to retake the city. Zhou Yu and Lu Meng arrived with reinforcements that saved Gan Ning, who managed to inspire his wavering unit to hold out for a very long time. The arrival of the reinforcements tricked Tao Ren, who thought the Wu main army was still stationed near Jiangling, when in fact the only unit left there was Ling Tong's, who had been successful in deceiving the enemy into thinking their army was much larger than it was. The Battle of Chi Bi had turned into a war of attrition by this point, which Cao Cao could no longer afford, so he called the order for retreat from the Nan Commandery, securing a victory for the Shu-Wu alliance. Their victory was short, as their attention soon turned on each other and the sought-after Jing province. Tensions rose between the two factions as their prior agreement to divide Jing was not honoured. By the year 215, a frustrated Sun Quan sent Lu Meng and Ling Tong to claim commanderies in southern Jing, whilst Lu Su and Gan Ning were stationed near Guan Yu, who was placed in charge of the area in Liu Bei's absence. The capturing of southern Jing incited Guan Yu to retaliate just as expected. Gan Ning sought the opportunity to prove himself and was granted 1,000 men by Lu Su to deal with the enemy's advance. He positioned the army along some shallows at night which prevented Guan Yu's 5,000 men from crossing. Left with no other choice, Guan Yu was forced to return home, thus safeguarding Wu's new territories. Gan Ning was promoted for his actions. The area later became known as Guan Yu's Shallows. A few months later, Gan Ning was sent to engage a garrison of Cao Cao's at Wan County. He earned the second highest deeds in the army. Top place went to Lu Meng. Gan Ning was credited for leading his unit atop the enemy walls first, and was later seen using a chain as a weapon on the battlefield. Only a matter of months went by until Sun Quan launched a campaign to capture the city of Hefei. The fight went very badly for the Wu forces, who lost many engagements and failed to breach the city. A plague also broke out, which was enough for Sun Quan to call for retreat. He insisted on being the last unit to leave, as he wanted to guarantee as many men of Wu made it home as possible. This dutiful act was exploited by the Wei defending general Zhang Liao, who had launched a detachment of elite soldiers in a critical attack against the Wu main camp. Lu Meng, Jiankang, Ling Tong and Gan Ning all refused to leave their lord behind, and so were there to protect him when Zhang Liao attacked. Gan Ning led a group of archers through the fray, encouraging the army by providing covering fire and with the beating of war drums. The Wu army eventually managed to escape after suffering heavy losses, whereafter the 4 brave generals were all praised. Later, in the year 217, Cao Cao marched south once more. He personally led an attack on the Wu garrison at Rushu. Sun Quan marched to meet him and secretly assigned Gan Ning with a special task. He was to lead 100 men and launch a night raid on Cao Cao's main camp, which is said to be 400,000 men strong. Before they engaged the enemy, Gan Ning forced all of his soldiers to drink a bowl of wine as a statement to not fear death. They proceeded to set fire to tents, destroyed towers and ransacked equipment before safely returning to Sun Quan's camp, whereupon Gan Ning shouted Wan Sui, which roughly translates to Long Live. Sun Quan was overjoyed at Gan Ning's return, for he had witnessed the chaos he caused from afar. Quan compared Gan Ning's ability to that of Zhang Liao, the much feared Wei general. After this great start to the battle, Cao Cao was forced to retreat after a couple months, where Gan Ning earned even more fame within the kingdom and respect from his peers. Gan Ning's date of death is debated, but we can presume he was grieved for greatly by Sun Quan, who surely would have missed his outstanding abilities in combat. If you enjoyed my video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.